Okay, everybody, we're back, and this time we are looking at The Case Against Christianity. Richard Carey? Okay. Richard Carey, let's see what you have against Christianity.
It's Richard Carrier.
Carrier. Okay.
The first is that God is silent. I mean, if God really cared about us and wanted us to believe the right things and go on the right path, he would tell all of us himself. He wouldn't need Christian missionaries to do it.
God judges the people according to their knowledge. He says God is silent, but I would say he's very much so present and loud. So I believe the Bible, and I believe that the Bible is the accurate word of God, and it's been preserved throughout time. It is the only book that has been fully preserved throughout time and language. So when he says God's silent, I look at the Christian Bible and I'm like, how can you say he's silent? It's like the best-selling book in the world. Now, he says, well, not everybody has it and everything, and like, if everybody would just be told directly by God, we wouldn't need a book. I mean, I don't know necessarily why he chose a book versus other things, but some people, they see and they choose not to believe regardless. Okay? I'd say God is pretty loud. He does it in his own way. Sure, he could do it in face-to-face, but he chooses not to. But he does it in his own way. This is him wanting to find a convenient excuse to not believe. And based off of this one, I feel like that's how the other ones are going to go.
We'd be able to ask him questions like, say, so what is your position on abortion, right? And he would give us all the same answer, and so we could confirm, yeah, this God guy, that's what he said, you're right. So if there was a God like that, and certainly if I...
And he did. It's called the Bible. You can look up the position of the abortion through the Bible, and it gives everybody the same answer. I think it's funny how we look at just normal English texts and we say, oh, well, what could this writer be meaning? And I'm like, maybe he didn't really mean anything by it other than what it says. I'm saying other than the Bible even. People like to dig so much into, maybe he meant this, maybe he meant that, maybe he meant what he said. Sometimes they have analogies and everything, but maybe sometimes they just meant what they said. And it says that murder's wrong. Okay, he says that he knew you when he was knitting you together in the womb. That you were you in the womb.
So you could find 300 witnesses that say, yeah, 1,000,000 to 1 odds, I prayed for it and it happened. Yeah, statistically, that we know that's going to happen anyway, even if there's no God, right? So when people understand stats and statistics and math, then those kinds of claims go away. And
now, he isn't false in that regard, but sometimes it's more than 1,000,000 to 1. Sometimes it's impossible. If I just had to look at, why isn't God doing stuff, I'd say he is. We have no understanding to why the atoms don't just fly apart, why the electrons don't smash into each other. That's God holding together the universe. The Bible even says so, that he holds everybody together, that he wills everything into being. Without him willing it, it just wouldn't exist. It wouldn't Thanos snap out of existence, it would just be gone. Before you were able to blink your eye, it would just be gone. So yeah, he's very active in the world.
These mass shootings, for example, the recent one where a guy goes in and basically murders 20, 30 kids. Why would God let that happen? That's pointless.
Okay, so a lot of people ask, if God is so good, why would he let bad things happen? Now, granted, maybe God's not good. Maybe he lets things bad happen because he finds enjoyment out of them, and that's an entirely different discussion. But if people say, God's so good, why would he let this happen? And I would say, it's because of love. Well, if God's so loving, why would he let that happen? They still don't get it. Love gives you a free choice, gives you freedom. And people get the free choice to do bad or good. I don't get why so many people have a hard time understanding this. If I love my son, I will let him choose bad. And so when they're like, well, why did they allow this shooting? It's because God is allowing that person to choose bad. I mean, even in the grand scheme of things, if you die and you go to heaven, then, okay, what was the shooting? And if you die and you were going to hell, you chose that upon yourself. So, it's not really God's fault. And this earth isn't that big of a deal anyways. But I mean, it's still God's love that reigns supreme over all of this.
He doesn't engage with us in the world. He doesn't do anything to right injustices or any of the things that we would expect.
So you're saying that
He did, though. He righted the major injustice. He died on the cross for your sins so that you could be saved for eternity. Not this little life, but all of eternity. See, this guy's stuck in this little life, this little box.
I noticed in your book too, you used an example of if you had the power to intervene to stop somebody being kidnapped or tortured or whatever and didn't do anything, how would people judge you?
Yeah, and not just how would I judge myself? I mean, I would feel awful about myself.
He compares God to himself and his own decisions. That's called putting God in a box. God doesn't work on the same level we do. God built us. If we understood God fully, he wouldn't be worth worshiping.
Well, the problem I often run into with Christians is they either don't have a good imagination or they aren't using it. Because if you really used your imagination, you could imagine and envision a world that's just as exciting and has learning struggles and all of the things we would need for a good life without the horrific injustices that pervade the world.
It's not about having an interesting life. It pains God every day to see the horrors of this world. It pained him so much he decided to flood the whole earth at one point. Yet he has so much mercy. And I see you guys asking the question, well, if he flooded the whole earth once, why doesn't he do it again? Besides the fact that he promised he wouldn't. It's because he has mercy and grace. He's giving us every single chance. He doesn't want this stuff to happen. He allows it because he has love and because he wants us to have free choice. But he only tolerates it for a little amount of time.
The Christian thesis that God cares about us doesn't hold up in the face of that evidence. And neither is the wrong evidence. We just don't have the kind of evidence we would need to confirm this. The kind of evidence we have is the same kind of evidence we have for all other religions and all other myths and so on. If there was a real God, he would give us much better evidence than that, and it would be the kind of Christian God especially could give us really good evidence where it was clear. And then the thing that people find surprising, I guess,
better evidence than what the Bible's already presented. We have proof that Jesus was an actual tangible person outside of the Bible. We have proof that Jesus died on the cross from eyewitness accounts. Again, outside of the Bible. You can look up, I think it's Pontius Pilate's personal diary and even find it. Well, journal. You know, he's a man, he has to have a journal, not a diary. Several different situations like that, where you can see outside of the Bible, these still eyewitness accounts hold true. Or the predictions that happen in the Bible. These predictions are coming true today. They didn't come true in the Bible, they came true today. Not to mention the ones that came true in the Bible. Or, let's say, the crossing where Moses was trying to get across the river and Pharaoh's troops were coming in, the water closed up on top of them. You can find those chariots in the water. And you can find a stone monument talking about how this is where Moses was led across by God. What more proof do you need?
It's the fourth reason, which is it's the wrong universe. This isn't the universe that a Christian God would make. It's exactly the universe we would have if there was no God.
How is this a universe that would be made if there was no God? The way I see it, the laws of the universe state that things don't come from nothing. That order cannot come from chaos. If anything, that goes directly against the theory of evolution, which is the only other theory out there than if there was any kind of God. Again, he's putting God in a box. He's saying, well, God didn't do it my way, so there is no God. That is brilliant logic. Love to see you on Judgment Day try to explain that one to God.
Say, what? How is that possible? But if you think about it, and just for example, I talk about many other examples in the book, but just as one of the examples, if there is no God, and let's just use our imaginations for a moment, if there is no God, but we did come to exist, that somehow, some non-God way, the universe came to exist and we came to exist, what universe would we see in that case? Now, we know that we've evolved for billions of years.
We know we evolved for billions of years. He's assuming evolution, okay? What universe would there be without a creator? There wouldn't be one. It would be an absolute mess. Even if there was material, right? Even if there was energy of some kind, it wouldn't form itself into stuff. He's been lied to. See, and that lie has blocked him from understanding that a creator could have created this world. Even a mean creator. No creator could have created this world. In his understanding.
Is from single-celled organisms. We can confirm that extensively scientifically. And the single-celled organisms, the earliest, simplest versions of them, had to have been a chemical accident. You know, there had to be like the chemicals just randomly came together, just happened to produce a self-replicator. And we know that that's very improbable, right? That kind of thing is not just going to happen every day. So the only way it could happen without a god doing it, without an intelligent engineer doing it, is if there were tons and tons of trials. It's like winning a lottery. Like if the winning lottery may be 1 in a million chance, that's really low. But if 1 million people play, the probability that someone's going to win the lottery is high. In fact, it's very high. And so what we would expect is we would have to see a vast universe, a universe that's really old.
Yeah, but it's not 1 million. It's more like 1 trillion. Or even more than that. It's so much so that it's been stated to not be a legitimate, tangible possibility. Forget who it was that said it, but if it's like 1 to 1 billion of 1 trillion or whatever, at that point, the number's so small, it's not considered possible anymore. And the chance of life forming, the simplest life forms, is way past that number. I wish I could quote you. I don't have it off the top of my head. But it is so small of a chance. It is impossible. It's not going to happen no matter how much time you give it.
With tons of planets and stars that has been experimenting with chemistry on vast scales for vast periods of time, that's the only universe that would randomly kick up life. That's the only kind of universe that would randomly kick up life. So the universe we would expect to see if there was no God is a universe that's vastly old, vastly large, and filled with vast quantities of stuff. And that's exactly the universe we see. There's billions of galaxies.
Vastly old. How does he know how old the universe is? I mean, I have my opinion on how old the universe is, but how does he know how old the universe is? Could he calculate the difference between the moon and the Earth and, try to do the math that way? Well, then you realize that the Earth couldn't be over a few thousand years old. Okay, well, they have a theory that the moon broke apart from the Earth, which we don't have any evidence of. If the moon broke apart from the Earth would look really different. Okay, what about our sun? How long could our star, called the sun, survive for? Now you may be looking at 1 million years, I'm not 100% sure, but not as long as they're saying it could. Well, then they like to say that stars formed in the Oort cloud. We've never seen this. This is all imagination and speculation. Again, not science. Where do you find an age of the universe? There isn't one that they can find.
These billions of planets. The universe has been around for billions of years, and it's billions of light years across. And so that's an example of the kind of universe we would expect to see.
See, he says billions of light years across, and I guess that would be his evidence for, it's billions of years old, because he's assuming it comes from a single dot. That's like me saying, there are cars in California, and there are cars in Maine, and Florida, and Michigan, and wow, all these cars must have come from the same spot. A spot in Nashville, Tennessee, the size of a dot. All the cars. Well, that's brilliant. Try to squeeze all the atoms of a cup of milk into a dot. That's hard. That's really hard. I don't think anybody's ever done it.
If there was no God. The kind of universe we would expect to see if there was a God is a universe that was actually designed by a God. You wouldn't need a vast age. You wouldn't need a vast universe. We wouldn't need evolution. Really, Genesis would be confirmed scientifically. We would confirm that the Earth was created 6,000 or 10,000 years ago. We'd confirm that all species were created at the same time. We would be able to verify all of these things scientifically.
Which is what we do have. The Earth has been shown to not be that old. Because if it was that old, the galaxies would have fallen apart by now. They would have all blended into each other. Instead, we get these very nice, pretty shapes. Couldn't have that if the universe was millions of years old. So, universe isn't millions of years old. Or billions. Also, he says, what was it? We wouldn't need evolution. Okay, macroevolution, which is probably what he's talking about, doesn't exist. We don't need it. Instead, we see animals decay and mutate so far that they can't reproduce. So animals couldn't be millions of years old. They'd have to be just a few thousand. We have proof that the moon isn't super old, the earth isn't super old, the animals aren't super old. I mean, it might be a little hard to dispute that all the animals were created on the same, day or so, or close to each other. I'm not exactly sure how you go about disputing that one, but a lot of the evidence lines up towards Adam and Eve in the garden.
Wouldn't be billions of galaxies. What use would God have for all of that? It's not necessary. There are lots of things that he could do, that he could have the universe governed morally, for example, that there could be a moral law like karma or something, so that if someone, for example, one example I give is the more evil that you are in your behavior and stuff, the more sickly and vulnerable you become. Whereas if you're the more righteous and the more kind and compassionate and honest you are, the more invulnerable you are to injury and illness. Now, if we have
once again trying to fit God into his understanding,
a law like that, a law of physics like that, that would really prove moral governance of the universe, and that would be something that couldn't exist unless there was some sort of deity imbuing the universe with this understanding of this moral law that made this happen. So we would expect not necessarily that specific universe, but something like that. There would be a universe that looked like a universe created by a God, and not a universe that looks exactly like we would expect if there was no God at all.
Well, scientists say that something can't come from nothing, and therefore the start of the universe had to have been started by God.
Right. So something can't come from nothing is the claim there. Yeah, we don't actually know that. I mean, it's funny. If you're going to say that
we don't actually know that something can't come from nothing. Have you ever seen something come from nothing? Ever seen 0 plus 0 equals 1? Not to mention infinity. Evolutionists and atheists like to think 0 equals infinity. Scientists at least are looking it up and realizing, wait a minute, nothing plus nothing equals nothing. Nothing plus 1 equals 1. Something had to happen, not nothing. Now they believe nothing made something, which breaks the laws of physics.
Something can't come from nothing. You're basically describing a law of physics, which is something. So if there really is nothing, then even that law of physics can't apply, right? So the idea that nothing can't become something else, if there's really nothing, then that law doesn't apply either. So anything can happen. I mean, if there's really nothing, if everything began with nothing, then all bets are off. We have no idea what could occur, what could pop out of that nothing, because there's no laws of physics that exist that govern what's going to happen. So that's one immediate problem with it. Another problem is we don't really know that it came from nothing, because as far as we know, there could always have been something. This is a common confusion among.
So an infinite something. Here's what we do know. Everything has a start date. Everything in the known universe today has a start date. So whatever it is would have to be outside of that box called the universe. So have fun explaining that to us.
Christians is that we can trace back our universe, the universe we're in, back to a Big Bang, but we can't go any further back from that. We don't have any evidence or any access to what happened before that. So we don't know if there was nothing before that. There may have been all kinds of things before that. There are many hypotheses about how there could have been universes before that, and that we are a product of those universes. And it could be universes all the way down, as far as we know. And there are apologetical attempts to argue that you can't have a past infinite set, but you really can. I mean, it actually is possible. You can have an infinite string of stuff, and it's just gone through cycles or different universes.
Again, this is fairy tales. There's no way to know that anything he's saying is truth. He's like, show me the facts, show me the evidence. But then he goes straight into a fairy tale.
And so on. I mean, it is entirely possible. We just don't know. And so you can't argue from what we don't know to a conclusion like, well, it must have been God. Well, we don't know that. If it was God, we would have better evidence of it.
It also kind of seems that if that's the logic they're using to prove God, well, then they've just stepped back from the creation of the universe to then creating God.
Right. Yeah. And then, of course, they'll say that, well, God always existed. Well, that's what I'm talking about, the universe. If God can always exist, the universe can always exist. Or they'll say, well, God necessarily exists. Well, maybe there's something non-God-like that necessarily exists that did it.
This is where we start to kind of agree. The only thing that could exist outside the universe is the lawmaker. A being that is a lawmaker, okay, that could exist outside this box, going in and working in on this box, is the only thing that could then affect this box, because everything in the box works on the laws. And if something just tries to spontaneously goes in, it would create those rules and break itself. But something outside the box can make those rules and then put stuff in and not break the rules. And that's where you get God. That's where God comes in. And it's like the only exception that we're able to find. And this exception still works within all the laws. It's still tangible, still works, still has all the physics applied. What he mentions with the infinite universes, without an outside force to work on that, it's impossible. You need that outside force. The best way I can describe it is, we have laws here, okay? This cap right here, it has a common law that we can see where it will always go down to the earth. As far as we're aware, we've tested it again and again, it will always fall down until it finds something to rest on. Okay, well, let's look at what it's on. It fell on this couch. Okay, well, this couch will always fall down until it finds something to rest on. Well, it's resting on the floor, which is resting on the ground, which the ground is and is resting on the earth. But what's the earth resting on? The earth is resting on nothing. So that's the catch, is the earth is kind of like the always was and always is in this case. It doesn't need to rest on anything because the laws for the earth apply differently. But it doesn't go on forever. There is a starting point. And so God is like that thing that's outside the box that the laws apply differently to. But then he works on the stuff that's inside the box. But when all you see is the bottle cap and the couch and stuff, it's hard to imagine that the earth wouldn't be sitting on something as it is. I mean, I've certainly never gone to space.
Instead. And other things you could point out is that a God is massively complex, is a really complex explanation for something, because if you think of all the random minds that you could grab out of all possible minds, to get one that was infinitely powerful and infinitely wise and infinitely knowledgeable and all of that, that's like the least probable mind you're going to get.
What I got from this guy is that he doesn't want to know. Every evidence he brought up was baloney. There not being enough proof that God was just silent. Come on, look around you. Even the Bible says that the universe around you is enough evidence to convince someone of God. He says that God doesn't do anything about it. The fact that you're breathing is something he did about it. I forget all the other points he made, but we just debunked them all right there. It's the fact that he doesn't want to see it, because he runs from facts and actual knowledge to something he's never seen before, which is just a theory. It's just fantasy. At that point, I don't even know if I would try on him. I feel like I would just give up and be like, okay, yeah, you go and believe your weird belief. I don't know, I don't want to say it's too late to ever give up on somebody, but people like that just annoy me. Well, that's all I have for this video. Everybody have a good night, good day, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is. And peace out till the next video. Okay.